All right, so we're going to pick up from risk planning and go on from there. Oh, just all the way back. Okay. So as we had discussed on Tuesday, things happen whenever you're working on a project. And software engineering projects are no different from any other type of project that you're working on. You're working with people, you're working with clients, and things happen. And in order to ensure that you're able to deliver your product based on the plan that you would have developed already, you have to be able to minimize or make plans for whatever risk that could occur. So we've understood that we have to try and identify all possible risks. We also have to do what after that? After we identify the risk, what should we do?
After we identify the risk, we need to put in place contingency plans in case of them.
Not quite yet. We're not there yet. No.
Assessment.
And what do you mean by assessment?
See the likelihood of it actually happening.
Not
what's
quite.
The probability of that risk that they identify actually happening?
No, not that one is either.
You would try and find what would cause that risk?
No, it is prioritizing the risks. Creating your priority list of risks. Which ones are the most important ones? And then you look at it. Yes, you rank them in terms
that actually makes sense.
Which ones are what you call it, catastrophic, have minimal effect, all of those things. And then you now start planning on how you're going to reduce, or as this says, avoid, minimize. You have strategies for those, and you also have contingency plans. All right. So the avoidance strategy is you try to not prevent, you can't prevent the issue from arising. But what you can do is to steer your organization or steer your staff away from those problems. So if you know that you're going to have a riot somewhere, you're going to ensure that your staff don't drive that way to get to work. Okay, simple little things like that. But in case of a company that may be seeing, maybe having financial issues, they may have a chat with their bank to ensure that, that problem does not arise. All right, so that's avoidance. And in the avoidance too, you can probably minimize it to ensure that if it does happen and it does affect you, the effect that it has on your company is minimal. All right. And then your contingency plans is even if it does happen, how do you deal with it? All right. Again, I have to step out one more time. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I am back. Sorry about that. All right, moving on from here. Can everybody still hear me?
Miss, we still here.
I can still
Okay.
hear you.
All right.
Yes, miss. Yes.
So here we have a list of risks and the strategies to manage some of them. All right. So because nobody knows, well, even though these strategies are here, it might not always work in every case, but they are a good starting place. It's a good idea to have, these strategies in place. So if you run into problems, you can utilize them. You might need to modify them somehow. So, organizational financial problems, prepare a briefing document for senior management showing how the project is making a very important contribution to the goals of the business and presenting reasons why cuts to the project budget would not be cost effective. All right, Mr. Stewart, you might want to turn off that mic. All right. Now, what this means, when in this case, the organizational financial problems that they're talking about can be regarding your software engineering company, or it can be the client's company. Regardless of whichever company it is that is in a financial problem, either of those two, a way you can help to manage the risk is if you show to your managers, do a cost benefit analysis, show them how the company would gain financially if they maintain the project budget. Because when companies have restructuring and they're looking at their budgets and they're planning what to cut, you really have to compete against the other divisions of the companies to ensure that your budget is not cut. It may not work, but it can help. All right. You have recruitment problems now. And this is where it may be that you don't have the staff that you need to carry out the project. You're having some difficulty recruiting, getting a freelancer to do your programming or your analysis. It can pose a problem. All right. It could be that your staff is going on leave or have to go on leave. Then you're going to have to, or if you need a particular type of programmer, then you're going to have to try and find that person. But if you're having problems, it is never wise to hide it from your client. You let them know what is happening. So you alert the customer to potential difficulties and the possibility of delays, and investigate buying in components. So if it is that you can, instead of go the straight programming route, you look at buying in, moving to the reuse or the component-based software development, looking at components that you can buy in and modify instead of having somebody come and write that code from scratch. All right. But regardless, you let your client know, because if there's a project time overrun, then you, the designer, you are going to have to pay for it. All right. Regarding staff illness, this means that you reorganize your team so that there's some overlap. And if you remember what we looked at on Tuesday when we started, that staff allocation, you could see that there were some persons who could help each other out. So you knew that there were persons on the team who could do other areas, who could work on other areas. So it's always a good idea to have multiple people who can do one task, because if one gets sick, another person can pick up the slack. All right. For defective components, when you buy components, for example, if you buy hardware that you need to use or integrate into the customer's existing equipment, or if you are buying hardware in order to develop the customer's software and something is defective, then you need to, you should know that before. You should do your testing. So you should be able to replace the potentially defective components with bought-in components of known reliability. Those with known reliability may be a little bit more, but push come to shove, you're going to have to use them to replace the defective ones. Now this one, everybody kind of likes this one still. The requirements changes. If there are changes in the requirements, it means that it would be the client who is asking for changes. Now, as the developer, you don't just go about and accept every change. You have to have what is called your traceability information. You need to know who this requirements change is coming from. And you also have to be able to identify the potential impact that these changes will have on the software that is being developed. And those changes will affect, what would they affect? We did this Tuesday, in term requirements changes or requirements variability. That's how we called it on Tuesday. Will it affect the product, business, or the project? Requirements. The product. Only the product.
The project as well.
The product and the project, because well, we know the product because if you have multiple requirements changes, when you modify one section of the code, it might lead to other issues in other sections. So you might have some issues there with the product. Requirements changes may also extend the duration of the project. So those affect both. So when these issues come up, somebody is going to have to pay for it. So if there are requirements changes, in order to manage that risk, you need to develop in your requirements documentation, and for every requirement, who specified that requirement, who gave that, what is the impact on this requirement, a change in this requirement, what impact would it have on the software project? All right. Okay. Then you have your organizational restructuring, database performance, underestimating development time. Organizational restructuring, that now is similar to the financial issues that we spoke about first. You have to prepare your documentation. So you have to let them know how that project will help the company. Because when in the restructuring of the organization, key people may be moved. And if you move key people, it will affect the project. So you have to state to management, and it always comes back to money, to show them how much money this project could bring in for the company. All right. If it is an organizational restructuring on the client side, you have to ensure that the client understands that you need key people to discuss the development of the project with. So even if they move people, they need to replace that person with someone who is knowledgeable enough of the project to pick up the slack, all right? So that it doesn't impact. So you always have that documentation. Senior management need to be told why it is important, but I would also say that it always comes down to money. If you can say that this project is going to be financially successful for the organization, then chances are you will get what you need. All right? There might still be a change, but the change that occurs will not have as much impact on the project itself or the product. All right, database performance. Now, database is if you are if and I'm glad this came up because we're gonna have to discuss this in your assignment. When you're developing software, you have a list of inputs that you need. All right, and based on the inputs, you will do something, and there will be an output. Now, if the inputs that you are getting into your software is not has been determined to not be reliable or not be accurate, then it will affect your project and your product. Not your project so much, but your product. So you need to be able to minimize that risk. So you need to investigate the possibility of buying a higher performance database, information that is more accurate, that is real time or up to date. That's the word I'm looking for. Up to date information. So, and that can be expensive. And some information might be hard to get because of personal information legislation or rules, but you need to get the best database that you can get for your project. Underestimate.
Could that section also deal with how you store like the data that system process, or would it exclude that?
No, it would
For
not.
example, like, to prevent data breaches and those stuff, you want to have a proper database to keep
proper security to reduce the loss of information. Yes, it does include security of the data itself. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yes. All right. Because if persons have access, if unscrupulous persons have access to your database, they can affect, they can do things to damage the information that is already stored there. So yes, you do need to secure it properly.
That's why we use Wikipedia.
I don't. Wikipedia is not a bad place to go to get information, but you have to know how to use it. Ignore all the information that you see and scroll right down to the links. The links is where you should go. All right.
Facts. That is very good.
It's a starting place. It's somewhere to go to start. It's not gonna give you the answers. It's a place to go to start. All right. Development time. Now, if you underestimate the development time, as it says, you may need to look at buying in components. All right. And investigate the use of program generators. And this will help you out if you recognize that your team is not able to do the programming part of it fast enough. So you look at the already developed components or the program generator. Again, they will cost money, but at least you know that if you must, you can. All right. And the problem with these components and the program generators is that they may not do exactly what you need them to do, but they do help. Okay. Any questions here?
It may also be a case where in terms of the limits of your hardware, you might be given a project that requires a stronger system than what you have, but you may not have realized it.
Yeah.
Because say for example, they ask you to create a game for the new PlayStation 5 console that's coming out, and you think that the system can handle creating a game for the new PlayStation 5 system, but as it turns out, it's not powerful enough, so you need to buy a new system, and so that would come into the development time. because now
Yeah.
you have to invest into new hardware and so on. Blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
right. That's right. You need more processing power because you're running simulation applications. So it will need more powerful equipment. So yes, that can affect you too. And that's a hardware. That's a hardware
Yes. So
issue.
what about the cost? Because our machine like that would cost very much. So would that affect the cost as well?
And this is where your contingency comes in. So if you have to do something
Okay.
like that, you then start looking at your contingency monies that you had indicated.
So means that under budgeting then would also fall in there or not properly.
Well, you see, this is a tricky situation, because really you should, as a developer, know what sort of processing power you're going to require. If you're doing any animation or any simulation, you know you're going to need high performance equipment. This is not just word processing or a spreadsheet. And even there are times, depending on what you're doing with the spreadsheet, it can use up quite a bit of processing power. So you really have to invest in your equipment. And if you can't purchase, you can rent. There are companies that do rent computing equipment. All right. Because you really have to satisfy your customer. You can't let your customer go and tell somebody else that they worked with you and it was a bad experience. Okay, let me see what is happening in the chat.
That's all about the money.
It's all about the money. It's all about
I'm just saying that it's not all about the money in terms of dealing with the customer, because
well,
your work is what speaks for you. So you want to ensure that whatever work that you're delivering is something that is recommendable and highly appreciated. And in so doing, sometimes that's so you may meet other customer, because that customer can refer you to another customer. Or if another customer should ask another customer about you that you have done some work, or they can make good, recommendation of you.
you see, I'm not sure if I agree with you, Mr. Fritter, because there's something as an engineer that you must understand. An engineer can solve every single problem on this earth. Engineers can solve every single problem, but at what cost? All right? So it comes right back to the money. Even though you can do it, you can prove to your customer, you can show your customer that you can do this way, and you end up with an excellent piece of software, no issues. They may tell you, leave some of the issues in there and charge me less. You have to be able to balance out how much investment you make into the development of a project and how much it will actually benefit the customer. All right, so we have to understand, we have to be able to balance out the costs, as you say, Mr. Rainford. You have to be able to balance out.
Maybe I never understand where I'm coming from, Miss.
Go ahead.
I was speaking in terms of that. If you and the customer agreed at a cost, the customer must get value for money, or what both of you are agreed on. You know what? At the end of the day, when you deliver the goods, it is not satisfactory, even though the customer willing to pay. So I'm just saying that in as much as the customer willing to pay for what you are charging them, at the end of the day, they must get value for money. They must not get something that is flawed and something that they have problem with, that they can't make any recommendation of you if the needs
Okay.
arise.
All right. Yes, I understand you. That's true. That is quite true. All right. Now let us move on to looking at risk monitoring. Now you've identified your risks, you've prioritized, you've developed strategies to manage your risk or reduce the likelihood of occurring, but it doesn't stop there. You now have to continuously check to see if this risk is still there? Or is this risk, that the probability that this risk will occur is still high? All right, you need to take a look at that, and it will mean that you have the changes in probabilities. So in risk monitoring, you assess each identified risk regularly to decide whether or not it is becoming less or more probable. Also assess whether the effects of the risks have changed. Each key risk should be discussed at management progress meetings. For example, if you started out with your office being in the basement of a building, and rains are going to come along, and you're walking down the street every day, the drains are blocked, you have a high risk of flooding. But if for some reason your office now gets moved to the top floor, it doesn't mean that you can't be flooded, but the risk has certainly dropped. Depends on how high the top floor is. You see what I mean? So and this is a document that you have to keep updating. All right, so you determine the period at which you update your risks, the probability of the risk occurring, and you keep monitoring to see if these risks are still likely to occur, or what the probability is of them occurring. Okay. All right. We have some indicators, risk indicators here. For technology, the indicators for technology, and that we're speaking to the hardware itself. All right. That you're going to be running the software on, whether it is hardware for the development of the software that you're doing, or hardware for the customer. So the indicators for that are the delivery of hardware or support software, and many reported technology problems. So if it is that what they're talking about here is that you've bought new hardware to do the development of the software, and you're reading and you realize that the reviews of this hardware this computer indicate that they have certain problems, and purchasers or persons who have bought them and have been using them are reporting these software. You know that your technology risk is going to increase. The probability of these risks occurring will increase. All right. If it takes a while, you've ordered this hardware, or it could be even software, and it is taking longer than you estimated for it to be delivered, then you also have a problem. All right. For people, risk now, poor staff morale, poor relationships amongst team members, high staff turnover. All right, so let's ignore the last two for the second and the third for now. Poor staff morale. That is the first thing that you should note in terms of people risk. If you have a team and the team are just not happy, you're not hearing. A lot of people don't like when their workers are laughing and chatting and joking with each other. They don't like it. You come to work to work. Why don't you work? Why are you running all of these jokes? Why are you wasting time? It is not necessarily wasting time. It is just learning each other and developing their relationships. And the more you push the staff to stop doing that, stop having coffee breaks, stop whatever it is, you remove transportation, all of these things, then the morale of the staff is going to go down. And if staff morale goes down, what is likely to happen?
The quality of work you get from them is going to go down as well.
The quality of work is going to go down because people say, well, they don't care about me, so I don't care about them. I'm just going to do what they're paying me to do and nothing more. And you can't really pay people for everything that they do for you. All right. People like to care about what they're doing, the job that they're doing. But if you don't care about your people and their morale falls, then they'll just do exactly what you pay them to do, or even a little bit less, and that's it. So you have to ensure that staff morale is maintained. Take the staff out for lunch, have happy hour on a Friday, something, whatever they like. It could be worship in the mornings or in the evenings, whichever way you look at it, but something to cause your staff to bond, to be able to work well together. All right? Poor relationships among team members. Now, if you recognize that team members are not getting along, that is something that you have to address. You call the groups together or the people together and you address it and see how it can be fixed. Now, if none of these are fixed, you are going to have a high staff turnover. If it is that you are really woefully underpaying staff and there are other companies around that need your staff, they are going to leave. So you have to figure it out. You have to be able to keep your staff, figure out how to keep them, how to change what you are doing, what your company is doing in order to keep the staff. Because you need people to do what you do. All right, so you can stop me when you feel like commenting. So organizational risk now, you have organizational gossip and lack of action by senior management. This is what you call, I like how they put it, organizational gossip. It's more office politics. It's not a nice thing, and it can affect what happens in the project. Every now and again, you hear that this is going to happen in the company, that is going to happen in the company, and senior management has to be able to address all of that. All right? There are things that will need to be done. For example, if you are having issues, if the company may experience financial issues, then senior management needs to sort it out. Because if they don't, you will have what is called organizational gossip, and what will happen? Go right back to people. Poor staff morale and high staff turnover. All right. Okay. Then you have the issue with tools. Reluctance by team members to use the tools that they're given. Complaints about case tools. And these are tools that help you in the development of your software. And there are demands for higher power workstation. So these are your indicators regarding tool risks. Your staff don't want to use the tools that you've given them. All right, or the tools that you're giving them, they're saying they're just not good enough. Then you may have a problem there. Requirements risk. Your customer keeps changing the requests. Keeps changing the requirements, I should say. Every now and again, they don't, and I think I said this to you earlier on, customers tend to not know what they want. So you have to be able to identify who made a particular request for a requirement, who changed it, when, and why. That traceability, it has to be there. And you have to indicate what that requirements change will do to the software product that is being developed and the project itself. So if you have a client who keeps adding requirements or changing requirements or complaining about something, then you know that you're going to have an increased probability of requirements risk. And then your estimation risk, some of the indicators for that, where that probability will increase, include failure to meet agreed schedule, failure to clear reported defects. Now, you would have developed your Gantt chart and your staff allocation chart. And on your Gantt chart, you would have had your deliverables and your milestones. And when each week that you check your Gantt chart, or each day that you check your Gantt chart, you realize that you are not meeting your milestones. So you know that you're going to end up with an estimation, or that your estimation risk is going to increase in its probability. So this is the reason you do risk monitoring, and these are your indicators. When we say indicators, when these things occur, you know that the probability of the associated risks will go up. Any questions? Let me see what is happening in the chat. I saw where Mr. Rainford mentioned nepotism. What do you mean? Oh, you can't talk. Okay. Nepotism is really a business risk where persons employ friends and family to do the job, and they don't necessarily know the job. You know, and that is a tricky thing, because there's nothing wrong in hiring friends and family if they are competent or good at their job. But it's a problem if they're not. So, and that's a tricky thing. And you don't hire your family or your friends over others if other persons in the company are better suited. The playing field must be level. All right, now here are your key points. You're going to read through them because these may just find themselves on a test. All right, I think we went through some amount of this already. I'm not going to go through all of this. This is more human resources. You can read through it. I'm not going to test you on it. All right, but just for you to know about managing and motivating people. Okay. If you were doing project management, the project management module, I think some of you may do it next year. You will see this come up. All right. Any questions on this? Because I'm going to move on now to a nice, lovely topic that I'm sure you want to discuss. And that's your assignment.
Oh,
No questions?
Miss. When I was looking over the PowerPoints, I don't remember if it was lecture 3 or 4, pertaining to experience, XP planning. And it talks about the stories. I'm kind of confused. Is it a case where the client has experienced something, and based off of the experience and the story they tell you, you code something in order to mitigate it or something like that? When I was reading it, I just couldn't fully understand. I couldn't fully understand it.
No.
So I'm asking if you can explain it.
When you are developing software, the client knows what they want. All right. They know, well, they have an idea. But as the analyst, you have to be able to take that idea and develop that and see how it is that the software will work. So you set up a series of what ifs or a series of stories. Okay? So this is what the XP planning does. You say, okay, if it is purchasing, is that what I want? If it's an organization that is a distributor of items, or yes, a distributor of items, specific items, you can say to the client, now let me approach this as one of your customers. What is the process that your customer should go through to get the product that they want from your company? All right, so they'll say the customer will go look on their website, identify the items, select the items, put it in their cart, and then from the cart, they should be able to enter their banking information, their credit card or debit card information, And from that, you should be able to now check. No, that's mixing it up. Once they've put that information in and it goes through, then the order should be able to be completed and shipped to the customer. That's one actor, that is one story. All right. But then you have other stories. You have the looking at the same example, but on the base on the from the perspective of the warehouse itself. So the warehouse manager or the warehouse is there and an order comes in from someone. So what happens is that the stock is checked to see if that item is there. If the item is not there, a message goes out, or a message should have gone out already that that item is not in stock. But if it is there, then you obtain it and you send it off to shipping as soon as the monies come through. You send that off to shipping, and then it can be shipped to the customer. So that's another story. Another story is the financial side of it, where accounts now gets the banking information, and they check that banking information with the bank's the bank's database to make sure that that customer has the money. They send the request for that money. The bank says yes, it is there. You can go ahead with the purchase, and then accounts gives warehouse the permission to go and send that item off to shipping so that shipping can deliver it. Shipping doesn't deal with any of that. Shipping only knows that it gets a product and it gets a delivery address, a name and a delivery address. That is their story. They get a product with a name and delivery address, and they get the period within which that product must be delivered. So they're able to route it properly on their trucks or their delivery riders and get the product to the customer. So all of those, that's 4 different stories. And that is how you use XP.
So it's based on that. It seems as though it relies heavily on like the various perspectives of those using the software.
That's right.
Okay. I think the reason I kind of struggled in understanding this one is because I don't really know how or have any experience in that kind of planning, while Agile and Waterfall are a lot easier to relate to.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
But in software development, you tend to you don't just stick to one type of process. You use multiple processes when you're developing your product, or you're determining how you're going to develop your product. All right, let me get this off the screen. I'm going to stop sharing for a bit so that I can find what I need to find for you now. Okay, and share screen. All right, so this is academic year 2019 summer assignment for software engineering. And the first page just goes through standard information regarding how to do this assignment. Now, there are 21 people in here, and I do believe there are about 33 people who are doing this module. This module, the assignment for this module requires that you work in groups of 5. So I want you all to determine your groups. I won't ask you to do it now. but I want you to determine your groups, and each group should identify a group leader and who is the managing director. And that group leader will send to me an email listing the name of the group and the names of the persons in the group, because they're a software development company. All right. The assignment must come in by August 4, and they must be emailed to me. No, when you are emailing me the assignment, you must, oh, I left something out here. You must make it a Word document. I know other persons would have asked you for PDF. I prefer a Word document because I can make my comments and notes directly on the document without having to print it. Okay? And your document must be formally organized, meaning that it must have a particular structure, table of contents, well, cover page, table of contents, introduction. Your introduction looks at the overview of the problem, your scope, your objectives, and the system models to be used. When I talk about the scope, I mean that you have to identify exactly where this software is going to be used. All right? And then the objectives is what is it supposed to be solving. I am preparing you for year 4. When you go to year 4 and you have to do major project research, this is going to come back to you. Then after that, you do a description of the design methodology. So from the system model, you would have identified in the introduction, you now go and you do the literature review of the system model. Who else has used that? Tell me a little bit about the model that you're using. Why did you choose that particular model? What about the software that you're developing that requires the use of this particular model? All right. And I answer 4 references. And the references can include textbooks or papers or other software that have been developed, similar to this, that have been developed, and you know what kind of model that they're using. You can go ahead and you list those as your references. Any questions? Am I introducing things that you know nothing of?
No, Miss Alice.
Pardon? Who said that? Mr. Cunningham?
I have a yes, miss.
Yes, Miss Alice. Yes.
All is well. Okay.
Miss, I have a little issue.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
The literature review.
Mm-hmm.
How you have a sample for that, like how do you do it?
All right. What I'm asking you to do, you would have, or it says review of methodology to be employed, and that speaks to your design methodology, which is really your system model. Okay. Now, as we go along, we will be looking at system models, and you will be able to determine which model that you want to use for your software, to develop your software. And all I want you to do is to describe to me what that system model is. Tell me about it and tell me how it applies to your software. Okay? And I think the problem that you may be having is that you haven't done system modeling yet. So you don't know what those models are, but we will get to them in due course. You will have time to do your project. References now speak to where you got the information that you're writing in your literature review. And please, I don't want you to write back word for word what is in the text that you're reading. You have to put it in your words. If it is that, and you have to give credit to where you got that information from, please look up how to do referencing. This you should have done already from your labs. All right, because when you submit your labs to the lab tech or to your lecturer, you would have been including your references, your citations, and your references in your lab document. You should have. So this you should know how to do already. Now, there are two formats used at UTech. Well, there's one format specified for UTech, and that's the APA format. But as you are electrical engineers, I accept and I prefer the IEEE format. All right, because if you are going to be publishing any papers in any electrical engineering journals or at any electrical engineering conferences, they typically they ask for the IEEE format. But if you give me APA, I will accept it. I think that's what you did in academic writing. Is that so?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, the bulk of your work will really be in the requirements documentation. I've been talking about requirements quite a bit. It is once you're able to identify exactly what your client wants, you can do your software development. So that is where the requirements documentation comes in. And what you must have in there, and if you notice I said including but not limited to, but you must have your functional requirements, your non-functional requirements, and any interaction diagrams that you are using with a data flow or flow chart and whatever system model that you're using. All right? And the system model, and these are all graphical. So these are drawings, and you're going to have to justify why you've chosen this particular system model. Some of that would have been in the literature review already, but then you're just reinforcing that this works perfectly with what you're doing, and also the graphic itself. Okay. Then you have the graphical user interface prototype. What will the user of the software see? What will it look like? And then after that, you have your validation and verification test to ensure that everything within the requirements document, you can trace that to somewhere in the software that you have developed, that requirement is covered. All right. From then you have your user manual and help files, and in your appendix you have your project plan, which includes your Gantt and staff allocation charts, and you are the staff. All right. Now, if you notice, there is nowhere in this document that I've asked you to write any program code. And that is because all of the software development can be done without code. It is this document that would now be given to the programmer, and from this you say, take this documentation, and from this you develop your code. Because they would have had the system model there, and they would have had the different tests to be run, and your software, your program itself can be developed from there. All right. Questions? All right. So you're probably saying, so what is all this about? What are you asking me to develop? Well, we're going to get there. All work to be submitted. Now, even though I have the code there, you don't have to put it in. I give you the format for how you submit, and please stick to the format. And the reason why I have that format there is just because it makes it easier to read. I'm getting old. All right? Use that format. I can see clearly. Don't let me strain my eyes. Even though I'm using a computer and I can increase the size, it makes it better if I can see everything on one screen without having to move backwards and forwards. Okay. All right. So, problem definition. I am asking you to develop a meal planner app. I sat there when I was developing the assignment thinking, what can I give these kids to do? These students, sorry, you're not kids. What can I give these students to do this summer that will be fun, grab their interest, and they could possibly develop if they want further and publish if they want to. It's a meal planner.
That we're all hungry belly people.
Yeah, I probably was hungry when I did this. Your client requires the development of an Android app to help their customers plan healthy meals based on their weight, target weight, underlying conditions, health, that should be health conditions, and budget. You just put in health conditions here. The user of the app will be required to select all foods available to them to create an initial pantry from the app database of foods from which they can develop. And from that pantry, I need to fix this. From that pantry, they should be able to, or must be able to develop their meal plans. So what will happen here is that within the app, you have all of these foods available. Not everybody eats everything, but the user can go in and say in meats they eat this, or maybe they don't eat meats. In leafy greens or in veg they eat all of these. In nuts they eat these. They eat eggs, cheese, milk, all of these things, bread, or wheat-based cereals, all of these things. They should be able to identify from that app the different foods. All meals, and no, I'm telling you one particular requirement here. All meals must contain foods from at least 3 food groups and cater to the specific diet, their specific dietary needs. So this is it. We're planning meals, not just a dish, an entire meal. All right, and the meal must come from 3 food groups based on the user's specific dietary needs. The meals must be priced based on food prices listed in the client's database. So in the database, there will be food, and each food will have a price based on whatever unit. So you could have, I don't know the price of anything really. How much is it for a pound of rice? Well, we don't even use pound, kilogram of rice. About $300?
Oh, them use me, so I don't know the price.
Oh, it's pound? How much is it for a pound of rice? About $100 or so, 150. That should be there. Now, while using the app, a person might decide that, okay, I've been making all of these meals. I need to change my meals a little bit. So your client must be able to update the food app database, and one that will also allow the user to update their own pantry from that food app database. Okay. Notifications and reminders must be given to app users to schedule, prepare, and eat meals. All meal suggestions must include recipes and preparation time, along with calorific and nutrition values. The general design of the user interface must be based on client details. So you can see, I've given you a lot of information here. Now tell me, is this enough to determine what the software will look like, what it will contain, how it will be used?
Yes, miss.
Really? I don't think so. I don't think so. You're going to
Like
have
your
to,
constraints.
not just your constraints, all your requirements. You have to be able to specify in detail all the requirements. No. In this case, I will be your client. So what I expect you to do, all right, so let me explain. This problem definition that you have received here would be what you would see in a request for proposal that is made public, whether through the newspapers or some website. This is what would be there. There are some specifics, but then there are some vagaries as well. So you would have to speak to the client, who is me, which is me, and say, okay, now that you've told me that, let me ask you some questions to clarify what I need to develop for you or to guide you in the development of the software. Now, to do that, you have to set an appointment with the client. And all this is not written down here. You please make a note. And whoever is going to be the managing director will have to do this. We'll have to make an appointment with the client and come to the client with specific questions to ask. It's not just a conversation that will ramble on. You have to have specific questions. Based on this definition, you have to break it down into its smaller parts, identify any ambiguities or anything that is not clear, and be specific about your questions, because if and when you do call me, my answers are going to be very short. So you have to be specific. Okay?
Call your miss. What are you saying? We are going to have some contact for your contact number.
I said call, didn't I? I will arrange interviews. So you
Because
just
I'm just
need
looking at
to
I'm just looking at the number of the number of groups, and for you
yes.
to be the client, and then for all those groups to be in touch with you at
That's just
different.
6 groups.
Huh?
It's 6 groups, no more than, I don't think it's more than 6 or 7 groups. All right, because it's 5 persons per group. If I see the numbers getting too huge, then we will take a look at the size of the groups. May be able to go up to 6, but I prefer my group size to be 5. All right, so I will give you the way you can contact me. So when you contact me via email to say you want to make an appointment to discuss something with me, you give me some times. And then I will choose from the times and I will tell you how to contact me. Okay?
Okay, it is going to be very time consuming though.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. Let's move on from there. No. How I'm even giving you how this project is graded. You get a whole 7 marks for formatting, 5 marks for your introduction, your lit review and methodology. To be employed, 10 marks, your requirements documentation. That is one of the first things you're going to do. Whole of 30 marks. Your software design, which includes a system model. And even though I have here system model, modules, classes, and objects, it's really system model. Your system model may include modules and or classes and objects or other types of state diagrams, activity diagrams, whatever. Whichever one you choose to use, that is what you'll put here. Then you have your graphical user interface. You know, if this is the screen you see when you start. If you click on that, this is the screen that comes up. If you do this, that is another screen. So you'll have a set of screens. All right. Then your list of tests that you would give to test the software to see if the requirements have been satisfied. And your user manual and help files, 10 marks, and their appendices, 10 marks. All right. There are no marks here for code. I don't want you to spend your time working on code. It is tempting because when you are doing software development like this, I can tell you, you will be tempted to start coding. But I don't want that. That is going to take up your time. All right? You can do that afterwards and develop the product and upload your app and monetize it, hopefully. All right? Any questions here? Or are you all shocked?
Maybe how will we have access to a sample?
All right. Now, obviously, you have not done most of what is required here. Now, as we go through, you will see exactly what is required in each of these sections. Okay, including the formats to use. Format
Okay.
or formats? Formats to use. And you can look up this online, you know, they have examples of them online, but I prefer if you, well, not prefer, I ask that you stick to the IEEE standard. All right. Let's see, there's a question here or a comment in chat. Okay. Any more questions? Or are you taking time to let this sink in? Let's go back to the question so you can see it, read it, and ask more about it. Or are you all looking up what a meal planner app looks like? Mr. Sawyers, any comment? Mr. Sawyers is still there?
Yes, miss. Good afternoon.
Any comment
I'm
on
still
this?
here. Miss, as soon as you send the question, this assignment to us, I'll have to read through it and see first.
Okay.
Not completely following everything now.
Okay. Mr. Blackwood? I'm picking on people at random now.
Reading, miss. So
You're
as
reading.
Mr. says, we would have to actually sit and have a good look. Then we can formulate the questions we need to ask.
Okay. You know what I like about this kind of environment? If I did this in class, you'd all be sliding down in your chair, hoping that I don't call on you and I wouldn't know everybody's name.
Definitely.
Mr. Colhoun?
Yes, yes, miss.
What's
So I
your
have
comment?
a overview
Mm-hmm.
of what you need, but I have the question right now, so look into it and then get back to you.
Okay. All right.
All right.
All right.
One question.
Yes, Mr. Campbell.
Which line is this? Yeah, the first line that says help customers plan healthy meals.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you the client would determine what healthy means, right? Or I would just assume
all right.
healthy based on.
So you have to know, this is the thing about the meal planner app. The meal planner app needs to make their own determination as to what is considered healthy.
Okay.
So this is
Okay.
it. This is what is going to help you afterwards when you decide to develop this and make it available in the Play Store. Maybe your app has certain things that will make the meals healthier than other apps. So I would suggest you do a little bit of reading on healthy foods. Maybe talk to a dietitian, somebody, to get some more information.
So
Just
when it comes
that's
so when
my
it comes
mother.
to
Okay.
food, when it comes to food, people are very careful about their calorie intake. They
Yes,
normally have to draw upon some kind of calorie calculator where they put in
that's right.
their weight, their height, their age, and based off of that, now some clever programming will come into place whereby it determines, what calorie would you need to sustain to maintain that mass, lose it at a pound per week or 2 pounds per week. So when a client now decides to use the app and choose certain foods that they have an interest in eating, I would think that the app would say, all right, if you eat this, it will give you will consume about X amount of calories, and you will not meet your target for weight loss.
And that's part of what I'm asking you to determine. So I am leaving this up to you. If you notice, I'm not telling you exactly what to do. You determine how you identify what is a healthy meal. What is a healthy meal to a Jamaican is not a healthy meal to someone from Japan. Or I don't even have to go that far. What is a healthy meal for me may not be a healthy meal for you. You see what I mean? So your app has to determine what it could be a particular style of cooking, it could be a particular type of foods that you're working with. Are you going to make your database expansive or are you going to limit your database? What are you going to do? All right, so this you were talking about, if you remember, there is a section here that speaks in introduction about scope. Don't make it too wide or else you're going to spend a long time stressing yourself about this. You have to be able to identify what it is that you will be working on. Are you going to be cooking Jamaican food, Italian food, Japanese food, Chinese food? What kind of food? All right. And based on the different type of or style, it could be a combination. Fine. But you will now need to know what items you put in your pantry or what suggestions for meals you put in the listing. All right. I see Mr. Rinford asked a question about a 3-course meal. No, I'm not asking you about a 3-course meal. 3 food groups. You know, in every meal, for your dinner, for example, you should have what? Carbohydrates, protein, and what else?
Vegetable.
Some form of veg. All right. So you
Yes,
need to
fat
have
limit.
our fats, yeah. So you need to know, and this is what I'm saying, at least 3 food groups. It can be 4, can be 5, but it depends on the user, what it is the user wants or should have. For example, if the user, and I'm giving you some tips here because I know the time might be limited when you call to or when you contact me for the interview. If it is that your user at the initial startup of the app, you identify a user and you ask the user some questions, and it turns out that they are perfectly healthy. Nothing wrong. They're not diabetic, they're not hypertensive, they don't have any underlying conditions, high cholesterol or anything. That person can basically eat anything and can stick to the standard calorific intake per day. But if your user is overweight and diabetic, then you know that there are certain set of foods that you remove from the database that they can't access. All right. Or it may be that you give them a treat every now and again. No, I am not asking you to write the code to do this. Don't stress about that. I am not asking you to write the code to do this. It is the design of the software. What will happen if this happens? And as I say, there are some system models that we will look at after we do our requirements specifications. We will look at system models so that you will know how to model the software. And it is not too much, Mr. Rainford. Anybody else? Let me pick on
Yeah, no
some.
questions at this time until we
No
look at the
further
document.
questions? Okay. So what I'm expecting of you now is to discuss among yourselves. I don't know if you all know who are the members of the group. Do you know each other? All right. So what I may have to do then.
Yeah, some of us know each other.
And that's the problem. Some of you know each other. So I may have to put you in groups. I think I will have to do that. So that
no need to stress yourself over that, so we'll handle it from here.
I like how you say that, Mr. Clark. All right. Well, what I will do then, I will publish the names of the class members, and I'll leave it to you to get in touch with each other.
Sounds like a plan.
One suggestion. We have a WhatsApp group, So if there's anyone in the class that is not added to the group, they could contact either me or one of the other persons.
Well, you need to make your contact details public, Mr. Sawyers.
Okay, miss.
Because that was what I was just thinking about. How are you going to know how to contact each other? There was a case that you all used your UTech email addresses. That would be simpler, but you don't. I don't even know if you all have UTech email addresses.
When we started, I think I heard something about how they weren't working or something like that.
Okay. Okay. All right. I will publish a list and of the persons in the group, and that way you should be able to give you a first step in finding each other. If there is somebody who is unable to get in touch with any or unable to find themselves in a group, please let me know. Send me an email, let me know. All right, and I would rather you do that by this weekend. Your test is on Saturday, Sunday. Let me know by then. That way we can fix it, because this, even though I'm saying it's not huge and that it can be done within the time, I don't want anybody to get stuck and not have a group and not be able to do the assignment. All right, so that's one part of the assignment. No, do I have the outline open? Your outline. So next week, we are doing requirements, definitions, functional and non-functional requirements, and elicitation. And then we look at documentation and validation the following week. We may be able to move all of that up into next week, but we'll see how it goes. Now, what I really wanted to point out is test 5. Now, each of your test values 6 marks, right? Because your overall test grade is 30%. Okay? So each test values 6 marks. Now, your 5th test, or test 5, is really a presentation. So what I will want you to do is to develop an PowerPoint and a voiceover with video showing, going through. So Stuart, turn off your mic. Going through your project. So you will be presenting it as if you're presenting it to your client, who I am. So that is what I want you to do. Develop your presentation and sell your project to me. That will be your test 5. I will publish specifications on that presentation because I don't want anything that is over 10 minutes long. I don't even want something that is 10 minutes long. It's too hard to watch it. Okay? I'm sure watching these videos of this class are not the easiest things to do. All right? There is no action. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here today. We're finishing early today. If you don't have any more questions.
Thanks, Miss.
I will
No,
upload
understand.
this now. I will upload the assignment now so that you can spend some time and look at it. You already have the PowerPoint presentation. So please finish it, go through it, and note that your test will be based on that. Everything that we went through in class.
Sounds good. Take
All
care,
right.
doctor.
Now, your test will be a combination of multiple choice, short answer, and some task. All right. So we have to ensure that you know exactly how to do everything, understand the material.
Um, to which lecture will be the test, Miss? Up to
Everything
which lecture?
up to today.
Okay.
Okay, so we leave it there. I see you next week, Tuesday.
Miss
Pardon?
Chambers, how will it be administered?
How will it be administered? I'll be using class marker. Are you all
How
familiar
much percent of the courses that test, Miss?
Pardon?
How many percentage of the courses that test?
I just said it. Look at the screen.
6% for each test. Anyway, Miss, do you have an approximate time in which you will have the test ready for us to do?
The test will be ready and open Saturday at 8 o'clock and close Sunday at 8 p.m. So it will be from 8 a.m. Saturday to 8 p.m. Sunday.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Chambers,
And
it's
it
Cunningham
is
here.
hold on, Mr. Cunningham. And it is no more than a half an hour.
Okay.
It's a short test. Yes, Mr. Cunningham.
Yes, Miss. I emailed you earlier, which you granted access, but I changed my email to a Gmail account because I couldn't access it.
So send it back again.
All right, thanks, Miss.
Okay.
So this Saturday, Miss?
Yes, this Saturday. Tomorrow, Saturday. All right, the tests are gonna come at you fast and furious, you know, so just be prepared. None of them are longer than a half an hour. So I'm quite sure if you're using data, you can put on data on your phone and you can do your test and off. Half an hour. All right. Okay, so we'll end it there. I don't think I'm getting any more questions. So see you next week Tuesday, and look out for your test being open using class marker. Oh, before I go, are any one of you not familiar with class marker?
Yes, miss. Never used it before.
Never
First
used
I've heard of it, miss.
Really?
Never used it.
Never used it before, miss.
Okay, I know some of you did use it.
They will send us a link in our email, or will we
Yes,
access?
I will send you. I won't send you. I won't allow you to register. I will directly register you all.
So I
And
download the platform.
no, it's online.
Okay.
It's an online testing platform,
So just click on the link and just carry it today.
and it will take you straight there.
Okay, okay.
All right, and I will. And let me just explain something. Class marker gives me the time you logged in and started your test, the time you ended. It also gives me your IP address. All right. And the test will be such that, first of all, they'll be randomized, the multiple choice, they will be randomized, and the short answer and the other task. Everything is randomized, and the options in the multiple choice, they're randomized as well. And when I say randomized, you may not all get the same questions to do, because it's coming from a question bank with us, and you'll be getting a subset of that question bank. When you do one question and you move on, you will not be able to go back. And from you log on and start your test, your clock starts ticking.
Dr. Chambers.
Yes.
In the near future, that in the near future, that aspect of the exam is something that I'm going to ask the school to consider, because there's no way you can't be doing a test or exam and you make a mistake and you can't go back to correct the mistake. It just doesn't make any sense.
This is an
that is
open
something that
book. No, Mr. Preacher. This is
no, yeah, but I'm saying whether it is an open book or not, because I find it in the last semester that was the case, that you can't be doing an exam or test, and if you make a mistake, you can't go back or correct yourself.
Well, don't make a
It just
mistake.
doesn't.
Do not
No,
proceed.
but in all fairness to the students, I think it's a policy that the university will have to consider. Because it can't be that you're going to do an online exam, and if you make a mistake, you cannot correct yourself. It just doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Preacher.
Really and truly.
This is
note,
this is not a university policy. This is my class, and this is how I am running my test. All right, this is not a university policy. This
I know I'm not. I am not talking. I'm not talking from this class, you know. I'm not really talking about this module in particular.
Just
it's just something that I experienced with other
modules. Hold on. There is no policy right now on how these tests are run. I can speak to my test. If you have an issue with any of the tests, you can put that formally. You can report it formally and express your displeasure with it, and then we can proceed. But I can tell you from my test, no, it is all of these online tests, they are all open book. You do not proceed until you are confident. These are short multiple choice questions. There is no need for you to have to go back. Do not proceed until and unless you are confident. All right? Now you will have half an hour when the test start, when you open the test. The only consideration I will make is that I will, if you do have a loss of data, or if you want to close the test before you complete, I will allow you an additional opportunity to log back in to continue your test from where you left off. Okay? Okay?
I hear the
Okay.
Dr.
Okay, good. All right. So I will leave it here. And I probably will do the test in such a way that you get your grade straight away. It's gonna take some more time for me, but I have the time to plan it. But I can set it that way so that it grades it and sends you the result when you're done. If it is that you all have if any of you have issues with the email addresses that you're using, please make sure you send me your new email address so that it can be modified. Right? Or if you have two email addresses in the group, you have to indicate which one it is that you want me to use, because I'm only sending the link to one email address.
Miss, I just said that. Remember that is the Gmail for me. There are two in there for me, but use the Gmail one.
Okay. All right. And I will do that as a rule. If a person has two email addresses, one being a Gmail, I will use the Gmail address.
All right, cool.
Okay, so have a good rest of your afternoon, gentlemen. I don't see Ms. Henry today. And I will see you next week, Tuesday.
All right, take care, miss.
Okay.
Thank you, miss. Same to you.
You're welcome. All right, Mr. Rainford.